I have worked with trauma therapy for many, many years. That's not our context today. But when you work with trauma, you meet different phenomenons, and one of them is that things are gone. They are gone from memory. They are gone from sensory awareness. You just don't feel them, and that's a very different challenge compared to the noisy parts of us. And with noisy, I mean exactly what you said, Serge. Something is screaming for attention. And the parts that do that, they are typically what's called hyper. No, they are tense, they are contracted, they are in an obvious way holding something for us. And given that that's it's obvious, it's relatively easy to track, that has been given a lot of attention. And it has gone into many traditions, also meditation, which is this: how do we think about the body when we sit there and we want to focus? Well, one of the most normal thoughts is that we need to relax, right? You could put your hands up if you recognize that. You sit down and you want to focus, and there's this almost automatic thinking that, okay, now I need to calm down and relax. And I mean, I worked with that too, but what I noticed and came to understand more deeply is that that only regulates maybe 50% of us. It invites regulation of the parts of us that are hyper, that are tense, that are overactivated, that are simply doing too much, right? If we talk kindly to them and say, okay, now calm down, feet in the ground, relax, come down to the ground, that works. But the big challenge is that the other side doesn't get any attention. On the contrary. So the other side, what is that? Well, it's the opposite strategy. That when something is challenging for us inside, we can do two things. One is to tense up. The other is to give up. It could be called many things. It's going into flaccidity. It's going into going vague. It's losing energy instead of stacking energy. See if you can get that, because it's that thinking that could make a difference. That what challenges us in becoming present is not only what there's too much of, it's also what there's too little of. And if you kind of join into that thinking, that would give you a different entry point when you sit down and you want to focus and you want to meditate. You want to become, aware enough to notice what's going on. What supports that? Well, relaxation is one thing, but the other one is to find ways to very kindly and in small ways to bring awareness to what has lost presence. And see if you can get it in your body that relaxation methodology, it doesn't work. If you have already gone a little flaccid, doesn't do too much to relax. In a way, it does the opposite. It just strengthens the strategy. So we need to do something different. And we need a different mindset if we want to include those parts that are more flaccid. So what is that? The key is that when something has lost energy, you want to be able to bring energy in. You don't want to relax, you want to bring energy in. that could mean that, okay, let's get up and get active and do something. If you do that, you just polarize. If you can get that, then you jump from the kind of the flaccid, somewhat collapsed parts, and then you kind of jump into activity. That's not going to change anything. So what is it that works? It works to think dosing. That's one of my key concepts. It's that you need to become active, but you need to do it in a dosed way so that you can actually bring energy in a dosage that these parts of the body can keep. Then something starts changing, right? So I'm going to give you some small examples of how that could look in practicality. So if you pay attention to your body right now, you pay attention to how you sit, you'll look for a relatively symmetrical position. That means that both of your feet can kind of have contact with the floor, and both of your sitting bones can talk to the chair, right? And as the very first thing, I think it's always useful to just invite the body to land into these four parts of the body. Just coming down, sensing we're sitting here, the ground is there, my feet, my sitting bones, my butt are in contact with the ground. So just see how that invitation feels for you. This is a very simple way of inviting some relaxation of the superficial tension that most of us carry in most contexts. For me, as soon as I give myself that invitation, my breathing responds. I breathe just a little bit deeper. You can just notice for yourselves how that kind of invitation works for you or not. And then we go to the other part of the body that will be more unfamiliar to most of you. It's this idea of that you can bring energy into parts of your body in a relatively small dosage, sometimes a really small one. And we start with doing it with the vertical line. So instead of coming down to the ground, I'm now asking you to sense both of your feet and then to make a tiny little push, just a little one, into the ground. And sense how that starts a movement that goes all the way up through your body. If you allow it, it will elongate your spine. It will make your neck long. It will start a very gentle little building up of energy all the way from feet and all the way up along your spine. You can do it in different ways. You can do it by make the activation and hold it and breathe in and out to that. Or you can find a rhythm where you activate and then you let go again. And then you activate and then you let go again. So there's this rhythmic possibility. And there's a more, okay, I'm going to allow this building up and invite my body to keep it. And when I let go slowly. And see if you can just be curious about dosing. Because maybe this works better for you if you do it very, very small. You can go down to barely thinking it, or barely doing it but only thinking it. Or you can do it with more physical energy, then it becomes more clear that some of your muscles are working. But basically, it's the same skill in your body that you contact, which has to do with getting aligned in your body. And I'll give you 2 more options to play with, which is the same but in slightly different ways. You can shift the weight on your feet so that you do the push with the feet with the outside of the feet instead of the whole foot. Just see if you can make that little diversion. Now, when you do the push with the outside of the feet, energy will go up on the outside of your legs. And the outside of your legs cooperate with your backside. And again, keep remembering that you can dose it. Dosing very often is the principle that decides if this kind of awareness or activity works for a person or not. It's how you do it. It's how you adapt it to you. And when you have tried the outside, you can do the same thing with the inside. So that you shift your weight just a little bit. So you push the inside of your feet into the ground. Now that will shift the activity in your physical body so that it's the inside of your legs that activates. It goes up to your pelvic floor and it goes up on the front side of your spine. So inside and front side cooperates. Still in an activity that has to do with getting aligned, which, if we think meditation is one of the key aspects when we meditate. It's how can we stay aligned and just rest into that. And then please allow yourselves to select. Is there any of these 3 options, whole foot, outside, inside, that seems to work better for you than any of the others? And is there any dosage that seems to work better? And when I say work better, it means that gives you some kind of resource in terms of feeling yourself, feeling present, feeling aligned, anything that you can identify as, okay, this gives me some kind of support right now. And allow yourself to let go of whatever doesn't work. Yeah. It's really like having an instrument in your body, right? And you can play with it. You can push with any little part of your foot and it will make a difference to how energy rises. There's such a diversity in how we can awaken or just pay attention or just discover, or but as I think the most important aspect I bring in with this is that you can do this really small. You don't have to do it in big movements. And if you include that, you automatically invite the hypo-responsive parts more in, because that's what they benefit from. As soon as you do something bigger, they quit. No, they are so used to quitting. They are so good at that. We don't discover it. They go invisible. But if we start including that, doing something small is just as interesting as doing something big. You start changing that whole inner landscape of which parts of you you include and invite in or listen to or whatever, however you will frame it. Yeah. I'll give you two more small things to play with. We started out with the feet, now we are going to the hands and the torso. So if you take your palms and you put your palms together, right? Just notice that your shoulders don't have to work hard because you do it. You don't have to go up there. You just let your shoulders rest. And you can also take your hands down into your palms. I'm just showing it up here. Then you can push your hands gently into each other. Now, when you do that, you activate the whole muscle system and connective tissue system in your front side. And again, you can do it rhythmically, which for some of you will make it easier to feel it. You activate and you let go. You activate and you let go. Or you activate and you breathe in and out of that for a little while. Now, dosing this, if you want to dose it really far down, what you do is you make your fingertips meet instead of palms. Just let your fingertips be the meeting point. You can still have your hands down in your lap. And that's where, if you want to do the very low dosing, you can just almost only think that the fingertips push into each other. Or you can let them do it more physically. As soon as you do that activity, you gather your front side. And just notice what that feels like for you. And if you can find a dosage that in some ways work for your body. Where you can breathe. It's not a question of stopping your breathing. It's just a way of bringing energy in to the whole front. And then to give you something to compare with, you can do the opposite. You can push a tiny little back with your elbows. If you have a chair with so your elbows can find the back of the chair, you make that tiny little push. You can reach the same result by doing like this with your hands and pull in each direction. Then your shoulder blades will gather. They will gather. And again, this is a question of dosing it. What activates there is the whole surface of your back. All the support muscles, all the connective tissue on your back. From your sacrum and up,